Hi, welcome back to Pulp Kitchen. If you haven't listened to the main episode this week already about Mickey 17, go and do that. If not, welcome to this episode, which is going to be about Denis Villeneuve's film, Incendies, which I'm going to call
Doubling down
Incendies.
on all the hard consonants there. Of course, many times we said it's Incendies.
I know, but it's just, we're not going to, I'm English. I'm going to just go for Incendies. So I have finally seen this film, and it's a film that I think both of us were kind of unaware of, very aware of who Denis Villeneuve is. Obviously, we've covered his films on the show many, many times, but not familiar with his French language work. Denis Villeneuve, of course, is French-Canadian and made films in French in Canada before making more English language movies. And it was with Incendies that catapulted him into making major English language blockbusters. I want to thank, I've pulled up a list of all the people that have ever emailed in about Incendies. First of all, it was Megan, and then we also had Thomas and Luke and Josh, who over the past 3 years have individually written in about Incendies. And I want to thank you for that, because otherwise it wouldn't have been on my radar. Yeah. So my friend messaged me a few weeks ago and said, have you seen Incendies? I really want to watch it. Nice. Let's watch it together. I said, let's do it. I love it when a film's been sat on my watch list and something just pulls it forward.
And then all of a sudden now you're watching it.
And now I'm watching it. And Incendies is a film.
Thanks.
That wasn't the end of the sentence. Thank you for joining us. Incendies is a film that starts in present-day Canada. It was made in 2010. Starts in present-day Quebec. And these two twins are at the reading of their mother's will. Their mother has died, and the notary, is reading out the request of their mother's will. And the mother has left them a very specific, very strange request to track down some people in her life and for them to hand deliver a letter to. It's very specific and very strange. And in following their mother's instructions, it leads them down a path of discovery about their mother's past, which is played concurrently with the own twins search. So we cut back to the mid-1970s, where the mother is from a unnamed Middle Eastern country, but loosely based on Lebanon, if you read around it, because this is based on a play by a Lebanese-Canadian writer. And we are told the story in parallel between the mother's experience in the 1970s, this deliberately unnamed Middle Eastern country, because it's not trying to draw any strong parallels. It wants you to have an objective opinion. And during this time, it is a country filled with civil war between Christians and Muslims. There is violence, there is rioting, there are people fleeing parts of the country saying you can't go to there. And that cuts back and forth with the twins searching for their mother's history and their mother's past. These things are cut between the two. That's all I'll say on the film. But like I said, based on a stage play. And it is this drama that is kind of shocking and gripping and has overtones of Greek tragedy. And needless to say, it's very different to any Denis Villeneuve I've ever seen before. It's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, it's so brilliant, James. I have to say, I was like 20 minutes in. I was like, whoa, this is a serious movie. Yeah. This is a proper movie. It's very dark in places, but it is just so gripping and pulls you into this story, like I said, which has kind of overtones of Greek tragedy and cutting between these two characters. It's just really, really unnerving and difficult, and I think builds to a conclusion that I think works, and also works thematically and says a lot. And really the film is about violence, hatred, the cyclical nature of violence, the cyclical nature of hatred, the inability to properly communicate something with another through words, and the limits of language, and how actions and experience truly define identity and not words. And why I wanted to talk about it was because I was halfway through watching this film thinking, this is completely reframed the way I see Denis Villeneuve now. Right. So I now look at his films completely differently. First of all, elevated respect, because I'm like, this is a very, very good film. Yeah. And I'm thinking, I see now where it all comes from. The cyclical nature and the legacy of violence is something we see in Prisoners and Sicario. And then the breakdown in communication, but the attempts for reconciliation is something you get in Arrival. And also I suppose the parental mother and child thing in Arrival as well. That's in this. And then there's also sort of like the wider dramatic sort of structure, like I said, Greek tragedy overtones is something you get in Dune. And I just I could totally see that. And also sort of like the mystery narrative with Blade Runner 2049, it made me understand the rest of his films completely differently. And I look forward now to almost revisiting all of Denis Villeneuve's work, because I'm so used to seeing big, epic Denis Villeneuve films, English language films. This is such a smaller, more intimate French language film. And he actually said that even though it's based off a play, he wanted to almost make it at one point a silent film, and he's really stripped a lot of the dialogue back. And that's why it felt very cinematic, as the images speak for themselves. And it begins with this incredible sequence to this Radiohead song, out in the desert. And again, it's without dialogue at all, but it just tells you so much. And I thought it was just such a commanding film. And I really came away thinking, it was just one of those great experiences where I finished it thinking, I've watched a great film. I love that film. I've watched a real proper juicy film. And I knew nothing about it when I went in, and I've told you very little about the plot, but I really knew nothing about it, and I was completely blown away. And I really hope, I'd encourage people to go see it, because we know Denis Villeneuve is a great filmmaker, and it's nice to know that his origins were in making great films before. I look forward to seeing some of his other French language films as well, but I recommend people to check it out.
Yeah, you say that, like, Dune, obviously big sci-fi, loud, blockbuster, commercial in a way, but so many times when we were talking about that film, we're like, you can adore frames and they speak so much for themselves as still images, or if you take the sound out and just admiring the craftsmanship of it. I don't feel like he's lost that by going, he is now ascended to be one of the biggest and most impactful directors now. He sits next to Nolan in these things as being like these big idea filmmakers on the largest scale. I like that hasn't necessarily, he hasn't lost sort of what makes his film interesting. I'm definitely sold for Incendies. I do need to find time to watch it, because I've only heard phenomenal things about it. And
it reminds me a bit of when it's like watching Memento now with Nolan. It's like, we know that Nolan now does very big films and great, but the bones of who Nolan is as a director are in Memento, The Prestige, even the sort of small to mid-budget films. I mean, this is a low-budget film, but I was impressed, and it's just very different. It's quite, it's very atmospheric. It's very dry. A lot of silences. But yeah, man, I was really impressed by this. I thought, and it's one of those ones I immediately messaged all of the film friends I have. Were like, have you seen Incendies? Have you seen it? By the way, it's got an astronomical rating online. It's got like 8.7 on IMDb, 4.4 on Letterboxd, which is one of the highest ratings I've ever seen. Like a 90 something on Rotten Tomatoes. I recommend people go and see it. And thank you again. Sorry, just thank you.
Yes, for the recommendations,
for recommending it out. It's a two-way street here, guys. It's a two-way street.
From my perspective, from his English language films, he really has seemed to just constantly evolve and get bigger. In a way that's really nice to see a director evolve, do more, do bigger with more talent, rise to the occasion, deliver, do part 1 and part 2 of Dune, have them both work successfully, financially, well regarded amongst critics. They're like, yeah, this is quite exciting, at least in our career of watching films, to see that ascension. And he seems to be just like, I'm excited to see more from Denis Villeneuve.
And I'm also thinking, I do think there's a point where if someone was like Denis Villeneuve or Christopher Nolan, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. I've seen more Christopher Nolan films, but I now understand Villeneuve as a filmmaker that has really grown and can do those smaller films. And Prisoners I quite liked, but I found it like just a bit blunt in its violence, and it's
really dark.
It's really dark.
Really dark. I think it will throw you by how relentless and dark it is. I remember finishing the film, being like, God, that's really quite a difficult watch actually. But the performances are great in it.
The way Hugh Jackman's character just sort of goes off is quite early on, kind of loses his grip on reality and builds the thing in the bath. Oh God,
Gyllenhaal's great in it, if a bit
very
emo.
Good, very good.
It's really good.
And that's one of the first times I saw David Dastmalchian.
Yes,
he's in that, isn't he?
He's just got a sort of creepy-looking face. Of course, comes back in June as a creepy-looking face guy.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
He's a little like Emperor's assistant.
Yeah. But he has. I haven't seen Enemy, which was the one he made between that and Sicario.
Yeah, no,
and I think because I don't think it got released out here, so I don't know if it's as good.
Yeah.
But really, if you look at his track record, he goes Incendies to Prisoners to Enemy to Sicario, and then to Blade Runner Arrival. My God, yes, of course, Arrival. Then Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Then
underrated, I think.
What Blade Runner?
2049. Yeah.
I think it's rated.
I think
a lot of people say that it's better than the first.
Do they say that?
I've heard people on film podcasts say that they rate it
really
as highly, if not higher.
Are they saying it's like a new take? Like, do you know what? I think Blade Runner.
No, I think they said it as a new take maybe 4 years ago.
Right. Oh,
okay, I just remember listening to a few film podcasts around COVID time. People were like, "I
don't hear enough love for it." And I'm like, I rewatched it. I'm like, God, this is bloody good.
Yeah.
For Blade Runner fans and non-Blade Runner fans, that film really works.
Yeah, he really is a master.
It's a really hard thing to do, to pick up Blade Runner that many years later.
Yeah, and also what I like is the central mystery at the heart of Blade Runner about Rick Deckard's identity.
Yeah.
What I love is that film, Blade Runner 2049, unpacks it,
Yeah.
plays with it,
Yeah.
toys it, but
Ultimately
doesn't
mess with the original.
Doesn't actually answer it. It allows you to maintain your ambiguity and its ambivalence, but in a fun way. Yeah.
Which is what most sequels ruin, is they lift up the rock and tell you what really happened.
Yeah.
Which is like the mystery and why we still think about these films is because you left things unspoken. It's great. It's really, really good.
So
someone write in about Blade Runner 2049. Maybe that's because I don't hear enough about it.
Yeah, maybe.
In my sphere.
Also, maybe it's because Denis Villeneuve doing a big science fiction franchise film has now become all about Dune and not about...
All About Dune
Blade
sounds
Runner.
like a sort of 500 Days of Summer
Yeah,
sequel.
all about Dune.
All about Dune.
But we... obviously, we're all looking forward to Dune Messiah, and we want him to, I think, while he's got momentum, finish that sort of Dune trilogy.
Yeah.
But then I look forward to seeing what he does afterwards.
Me too.
I'm
keyed in. Tells
now.
a smaller story.
Yeah.
Because Nolan's not gone smaller. He's doing Odyssey. He's cast Matt Damon.
Yeah.
And Tom Holland.
I don't know how Nolan goes bigger than that. We talk about the Odyssey all the time.
There is no bigger.
Yeah.
He's done The Bomb. He's done
Bond.
Einstein.
If he did Bond, maybe.
Bond. I'd love it. I'd love it if we did Bond. And I think
So,
that could happen.
Again, Benedict Townsend, friend of the show, was like, he thinks
it's going to be Nolan.
He thinks Amazon now could reignite that. But I said,
Nolan
but
is busy.
But if he's busy with the Odyssey, they're not going to have a Bond film out until like 2029.
Really long time.
Which would be like 8 years.
And I think they'd want to go sooner.
I think they'd want to go sooner.
Nolan could do... he could wait. So, there was somebody did a quick fire interview with Christopher Nolan. They asked him a bunch of questions like, would you ever make a TV show? And he said no. And would you ever do this? And he said yes. Can you eat while you watch film? And he said yes. And then
he can?
Yeah, he said you can eat while you watch film. And he said, is it okay to watch film on a laptop or a tablet? And he said yes, it's fine. And then someone said, would you ever make a Star Wars film? And he paused and he said, pass. And he said, would you ever make a Bond film? And he went, pass. Which to me feels like it's been percolating.
I think it's just politic to do that.
And it's political. Yeah, it creates a headline.
It's good. It's a well-played bit of politic there to just go.
These are the two things he passed on.
Why you can't really go on record about the two.
Because he's talked about how much he really does love Star Wars, but I think he probably doesn't want to be involved in what it is now. No. I think he would like, in our perfect world, where you just stop.
He is,
and then you come back in 12 years and it's Nolan Star Wars.
Nolan is lucky to have what few directors have, which is he is his own brand and his own niche. Yeah. The people who are able to operate successfully under that are
he's chiseling himself in the Mount Rushmore of directors, isn't he?
Yeah, I know, but he's like, my next project will be a Christopher Nolan project, and that's the highlight. Yeah, that's the IP.
Get a 3-month cinematic release, and it will be shot in IMAX, and it will be my own film. It's his film.
And that's what I think. So, like,
Syncope.
I think Denis Villeneuve is going to get to that point after June. He'll have that, and I think Scorsese has that.
His Dark Knight
Spielberg kind of has that. Tarantino has that, where it's like it's a Tarantino film. Yeah, it's auteur theory. And to his credit, M. Night Shyamalan. To be fair, M. Night Shyamalan makes M. Night Shyamalan films. So, but it's like Osgood Perkins went on the record and was just like, "Would you make a James Bond film?" He was like, "Nah, fuck Jeff Bezos."
I saw that.
And I'm like, bold, because you're not that big. Yeah, you're not that big a director.
Would you want Nolan to do a one and done, or do you want him to do, which I actually have wanted Bond films to do, which is to tell a story over a few films and make it matter.
I want Nolan to be tied up for 10 years making Bond?
Yeah, now you said that out loud, I don't.
No.
But
I'd happily
it's the case of like what Bond has lacked is a continuity of care across the films.
Also, Nolan...
But would it be fucking good if he did 3?
It is great. It is kind of interesting sometimes to see when great filmmakers do play with the franchise toys. Yeah. So like, yes, he did franchise 20 years ago with Batman. Does that mean what, never do a franchise again? Or is he going to go, you know what? I think I would like to play with Bond. I get the best toy in the toy box. Because he's Christopher Nolan. Bond comes to him. He doesn't ask to do Bond. Bond comes to him. Yeah. That's pretty good.
Because apparently the word on the street was because the Broccolis had the last creative control. Bezos was like, I don't care what it costs. Give me control over.
Was it you who told me this, or was it Benedict who's just said apparently the thing that was true was like Barbara Broccoli was out of ideas though. They genuinely were.
Must have been Benedict.
They were like they really had no ideas of how to go forward. Really? They felt like they'd done everything.
No ideas?
Yeah.
I have ideas.
Yeah. Don't quote
Barbara,
me.
don't give it up.
Don't quote me on
sign
that.
it.
Also, I love the fact we started talking about Denis Villeneuve and then we ended up talking about Christopher Nolan. But anyway, that was
big filmmakers.
Incendies. I recommend you watching it. Please do. And if you do go and see it, James, let me know what you think as well. Check that out. Thank you as ever to our producers, Finn and Dave.
Thank you, Finn. Thank you, Dave.
Bye.